Hi guys, it's Night Fear, and I have come on to do my August wrap-up, which is also the same thing as my NEWTS Readathon, the Magical Readathon wrap-up. I have actually read 29 books this month. I can't believe it. I'm just so shocked that I don't know. I don't think I've ever read that many books in a month. I'll go ahead and do the stats. For those of you that also did the NEWTS, you'll understand. I ended up with 1 acceptable, which was Ancient Runes. I ended up with 2 exceed expectations, which was Charms and Defense Against the Dark Arts, and 8 outstandings. And the outstandings were arithmancy, astronomy, care of magical creatures, divination, herbology, muggle studies, potions, and transfiguration. And the one that I couldn't do because I didn't complete the owls was history of magic, so I couldn't do that one. So I did pretty well, and I'm really excited, and I read some really good books. There is a part 1 that I did do I believe it was the first 8 books, and I was supposed to have a couple parts so I didn't have to do so many books. Yeah, well, I kind of screwed up. So this is going to be kind of a long video. I'm going to try to go through kind of fast, but I do want to briefly touch on those books that I read. I'm just going to tell you the title and the author and what I gave it for those books that I already did in part 1. Now for this, I'm going to tell you a little bit, of course, about what the books are about and what I thought, and some of the books I'm probably going to go on and on about a little bit because a couple of these I got really, really excited about. So, alright, so here we go. So the very first one, and I'm doing this in the order of the classes that Book Roast listed them in. Excuse me. So the very first book that I read, let's do it like this because it's easier, or not the first book that I read, I'm sorry. The first book that I'm going to tell you about is Dread Nation, and it's by Justina Ireland. And this was an awesome book. I gave it a 4. This is actually set during the Civil War. It is a zombie book. Yay! And if you guys have been on my channel any length of time, you know I love zombie books. It is, our main character's name is Jane, and she is a mixed person. I'm trying to remember, I think actually, I'm not going to go into that because it's kind of one of those, you think it's one way and it's another way. So anyway, no, I'm not going to go into that, but she's mixed. Just we'll go with that. And she ends up in this school for young ladies that they teach them how to fight zombies. And it's oh, I can't remember what they call them. Hold on, let me see if I can figure out what they call them real quick. Shamblers, is that it? I think it's Shamblers. Let me see. Of course it doesn't say. But anyway, she goes to this school. I think they call them Shamblers. But she goes to this school, and some things happen, and I can't really go into it because, yeah, well, spoilers. But this was awesome. Like I said, I gave it a 4. The only reason I gave it a 4 is some of it just kind of dragged here and there a little bit. Not too bad, though. Not too bad. There is a lot of action. It's got a couple twists that I didn't see coming. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I really highly recommend this one. So I hope some more books like this come out, because this was really, really good. Okay, so that was the only thing in Ancient Runes. Then we have Arithmancy. I have 3 books, and these are all physical. Oh, and that was the challenge, a book set in the past. Sorry, I should have told you that, the Dread Nation. Because, see, it was set in the Civil War. See what I did there? So, Arithmancy, the first challenge was a book of at least 300 pages, and I read Cruel Prince. And no, this is not the original one that I was going to read for this challenge, but some things happened, and I wanted to read some other books, and some of the books I didn't like, and a lot of stuff happened. And so I had to switch some books around. But I did get to read this one, and this is by Holly Black, and oh my goodness, I love this book. I gave it a 5. I know around YouTube, There's a lot of people that don't like this book, but I really liked it. It is about three sisters, and this is actually told by one of the sisters' perspective. And a prince comes, a fairy prince comes and kills the mother and father and steals the girls away, and there's a reason why he does this. And they go to live with him at court. And so that was when they were little, and then you get that first part, and then it jumps. And then you're with one of the sisters, Jude, through the whole thing. It's told by her perspective, and so you see the world the way she sees it. And she hates the man that killed her parents, but she doesn't. And she kind of, it's this fight within herself. And she wants to be a knight. That is what she wants. And so she's trying to learn how to fight, and she's trying to be strong, and she is very headstrong, and it gets her in trouble sometimes. And, well, some things happen, and there's a couple of twists, and she ends up being a bigger part of the realm than what she thinks she's going to. So, but yes, I'd highly recommend, and when the second one comes out, I am going to read that too. And I think it comes out at the beginning of next year, I think. But yes, The Cruel Prince. Highly recommend it. And this is I think the first fairy book I've ever read. I am reading another one now, which you guys will see. I don't think it's in my TBR, because Kaylin and I started listening to an Audible book together. But anyway, so you'll see about that later. But yeah, Cruel Prince. Very good. Okay. Then the next book is a book that ends on an even number page, and I chose The Ranger's Apprentice. This is actually my book. It's book 2. It's called The Burning Bridge, and it's by John Flanagan. And then for the next challenge, it's a book that's not the first in the series, so I chose the third book in the Ranger's Apprentice series by John Flanagan. And I am loving these. These are actually considered middle grade. And I talked about this one after I read the first one. These to me do not read like middle grade. I really am enjoying these. And it just continues where we left off with Will and Horace and Halt. And it just keeps going. And this one is kind of continuing the war. And then this one, they kind of, Will and somebody else gets caught in this one. And then they kind of, it's a continuation. So I can't really go into it too long or too much, because I don't want to do spoilers. But I really enjoy these. And I'm actually going to get the 4th one from the library to read this month. And then I own the 5th one. So hopefully I'll be able to get to that one too. Because I'm going to try to read some series and finish up some series. But yes, these I definitely highly recommend. I definitely recommend you read those. So that's the arithmancy ones. So astronomy, got to get back on my Kindle, because I read, a lot of these are on the book, but some of them are on my Kindle. So this next one is called, and it's for stars on the cover, astronomy. And this one, let me see if I can, okay, is Once Upon a Star, and it's Nora Roberts, Jill Gregory, Ruth Ryan Langan, and Marianne Williams. So it's four different short stories. They're romance. I kind of like some of the stories, kind of not. I think if I remember right, they were all in Ireland. Some today. There was one especially that I remember that was, back in the time, castles and, I don't even know what time I should call it. Like, what was it? 1800s, 1700s, something like that. And then one of them was back in time. It was, back and forth. One of those. And I mean, I liked one of the stories kind of, but I ended up giving it a 3. I don't know. One of the last story was really, it was just like sex, a page, sex, sex. And if you guys have watched me before, you know I don't really enjoy books like that or stories like that. But luckily only one of them was like that. So, but the Nora Roberts one I liked. That was the first one, I think. And I liked that one. And then, of course, I liked the one that was in the back of the time, the 1800s or whatever. The one that went back and forth in time was, I don't know. But, it was all right. But I was going to read another book for that, and the book that I was going to read, I just wasn't feeling it, and I tried to find something else with stars on the cover, and, well, yeah, you know how that goes. Whenever you're trying to find something like with stars on the cover or something like that, you can never find it. Now, if I wasn't looking for it, all my books I'd find with star on the cover. The next one is you have to read a book with the word sky in the cover. I think a lot of people read this one for that challenge, and that's Sky in the Deep. And I gave this one a 4, just because I'm trying to remember. I think it was, and it's by Adrienne Young. Trying to remember why I gave this a 4. I did have to listen to this on audiobook because I couldn't, my Kindle book I had to return before the thing started because I was on hold for it, and then it came in a little too soon, and then other people had hold for it on my e-reader from my library, and my library does not have a physical copy, so I read it, or I listened to it on audiobook from Scribd. And guys, I don't know if I'd listen to the audiobook because the lady who reads it, she breathes really loudly, and it kind of annoyed me at times. It just didn't, because she goes, I mean, you can hear it. It's I don't know. I just found it rather annoying. The story's really good though. It's about a girl, and her name is, what was her name? Hold on one second. Her name is Elin. And she is a Viking warrior, even though she's a girl and she's 17. And her brother passed away. He died, I think it was 5 years ago. And the very beginning of the book, she sees him, okay, in this fight. And so she ends up getting hurt, and then the next day they go out again, and she sees him again, and she tries to find him, and she gets captured. So, yeah. And so it's about these two Viking clans. I don't think they're called tribes. I think they're clans. And you kind of, it goes into, the book kind of goes into how they're same, how they're different, what she thinks, the story. I mean, it just kind of goes into all kind of different directions. In a good way. And then they end up having a common enemy, and you get to see what happens through that. I would definitely recommend this book, but like I said, I think I would definitely recommend reading it and not listening to it. Unless you don't mind that. I mean, it might be okay for you. You might not mind it, but I, like I said, I did. Okay, then the next one I read was Cruel Crown, which is two short stories in the Red Queen. I loved the Red Queen, and it's by Victoria Aveyard, and so I wanted to read this, and it was really good. It tells the beginning story of the Queen, the original Queen, that they allude to in the Red Queen, which is Cal's mom, if you guys have read it. Really interesting story. You get a view of Cal's mom and the way the king was before, and it's a little different. It's good. And then the next part of it is about, and I'm not going to say too much because if you haven't read the Red Queen, because the Queen story it doesn't really spoil too much, because you don't find out about what happened to her in the Red Queen, and so it doesn't spoil this. And I even know the second part, I guess, a little bit maybe, but not too much. But it tells you about the rebels, and one of the girls that you see in the Red Queen, and it tells how she began and how they started, the rebellion kind of, and it touches on that. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5. And I'm actually right now reading the second Red Queen book, which I can't see. It's the Glass Sword. So right now I'm reading the Glass Sword. So I'm excited about, you know, being back in this world again, because I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, so the next 3, yay, are physical books. This is Care of Magical Creatures. The first one is Animal on the cover. As you can see, it's got a tiger, but then it's also, I noticed as the last time, it's got a lot of animals. This is The Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I gave this a 5. I did not read I started reading it and I was just like, ugh. I listened to the audiobook. Now, where the other one I wouldn't have recommended, this one I would highly recommend the audiobook. It was really good. The way his voice is, it's just, I don't know, and it's I don't know how to explain it. It just made the story so much more real. And I liked the twist at the end. And it was a lot like the movie, because I have seen the movie. It's been a while, though. And I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people don't, but I did. I really enjoyed this book. So I would recommend this. If you like books that are kind of different and unusual, and you kind of get a, you know, not what is expected. But yes, I really like that. So 5 on that one. And then the next one is to read a book under 160 pages. I chose Animal Farm by George Orwell. This was a reread. I read this when I was in high school, so it's been a few years. I enjoyed this. Again, I gave it a 5. And basically what this is about is the animals on this farm take over the farm. And it tells kind of how even a good idea at the beginning can be corrupted by the end. And it was a good book. So yes, I recommend this one. And this one can be just read at the simple level, or, you know, you can delve into the different levels of this book. But I would definitely recommend. I gave that one a 5. Then this one is to, it has to include dragons in any way. This is White Dragon by Anne McCaffrey. I love Anne McCaffrey's books. I have read this before, and this just tells basically the story of the White Dragon and his rider, and how they kind of, basically how they grow, how they learn how to do some of the things that the dragon needs to do in this world. Plus, it also increases the story. It kind of what the Master Harper is trying to do in the southern continent. And most of you are like, what? You have to read these books to understand. There are suggested ways to read these, but they are kind of stories unto themselves, because she kind of explains a little bit in them. So you could pick up just this book and be just fine reading it. But I would recommend, if you have never read any of these, to start at the beginning. And I've read quite a few, but it's just been a while. But they're the Dragon Riders of Pern. But if you like dragons, I definitely would recommend. And it's a whole world, and she just, she builds upon it and builds upon different sections of the world. And she's just an amazing author. I really love her. And I gave that one a 5 also. The next one, Charms. The first book, it was one of the books that I did in the other review, and that was The Rose Society by Mary Lou, and I gave that a 5, and that was to read a book with magic in it. The next one in Charms is to read a book with a cover that charmed you, and I showed you in my TBR that this was not the cover. I was going to read it in ebook, but then I found out my library had it. The one on ebook actually has a cup with blood like running over it. And this is Sunshine by Robin McKinley. I gave this a 4 because her writing is a little strange, and I almost DNF'd it at the very beginning, but I'm glad I didn't, because I really ended up kind of enjoying this book. But she's like, hey, let's talk about the sky, and then all of a sudden, you going off and talking about the garden. It's just, it's that kind of, you know, you're right in the middle of something happening and she goes off on a tangent about something else. It's kind of bad at the beginning. It kind of is through the whole book, but it does get a little better. But I would recommend if you like vampire type stories, like real good. Now, I love Twilight, you guys know, but it's not a Twilight story. It is a gritty, you know, vampire story. And there's not really, I wouldn't say there's really romance in it. It touches on it here and there, but not really. That's not really part of the story. Basically what happens is Sunshine gets kidnapped by a group of vampires and meets another vampire, and they end up having to fight the gang of vampires together. That's basically it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's basically it in a nutshell. Like I said, I really liked this book. I really wish I looked. There's not another one. It seems to me like there could have been because of the way it ended. But there's not. So, it's okay. But yeah, like I said, I gave this a 4. I'll definitely recommend it. Okay. Next is The Defense Against the Dark Arts. The first book in that was Rita, a last book in the series. I read The Midnight Star by Mary Lou, and I gave it a 4. That's in my other review. The other one is to read a foiled book. Now, this is the one I was supposed to originally read, Cruel Prince, but I chose The Darkest Minds, and it does kind of have a little foiling, kind of a little bit. Of course, I could switch out the two, and I could have read this, because this is definitely over, and I don't know. But anyway, The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. Oh my goodness, I love this book. I gave this book a 5, and I'm getting the next one to read this month, and I cannot wait. And this is about a flu that goes through, and either the children die from it or they get powers. And the powers are split up. It's red. They're red, blues, greens, yellows, and oranges. And no, that's not the order, but that's the order it came to my mind. And this girl, Ruby, is her name Ruby? Yes, Ruby. Hey, I actually remembered. Ruby is actually an orange, and she convinces the guy at the camp that she's a green, and so she's in camp as a green, and it goes through her, and what happens to her at this camp, and it also, goes through when she escapes and what happens, and yes, it's very good, and I can't wait to finish, or to continue reading this. And I'm really excited about all the series I've been reading lately. It's really, really cool. Okay, the next one is Divination. The first one, I actually read Ready Player One. That's on my other video. And I gave it a 5. And I cannot remember who that's by because I forgot to write it down. But that's okay. You'll see it in the other video. The next one is a book under 200 pages. And I read the second volume in Lock and Key by Joe Hill, and the art is done by Gabriel Rodriguez. And this book is so freaky, let me tell you. It is so good, and I enjoyed it so much. I gave it a 5, and unfortunately my library doesn't have any more, so I'm trying to figure out how to get more of these. I might just have to go buy some graphic novels. But I really enjoyed these, and I highly, highly recommend this. I did a review of the first one. I don't really want to go too much more into this one because it kind of takes things from the first one, but it just continues with the house and the keys and this family and this evil that has decided that, you know, it needs their help to find the key that it's looking for, basically. So that's Lock and Key. Then the next one I read, that was for, book under 200 pages. This one is Read a Mythology book. Of course, I picked Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, because, that was the easiest one. This is the second Percy Jackson book. Like I said, continuing the series, and this is one that I own. I actually have all the Percy Jackson books, so why haven't I read them yet? I don't know, because I'm stupid. But I enjoyed this one. I have seen the movie, and I was surprised at how different. I guess I shouldn't be, but the first one I remembered, it was semi-similar. This one wasn't the same at all, really. I mean, it was a lot different. The feeling of him and his new friend was just totally different than what you got in the movie. But I really enjoyed this. I did give it a 4. It was a little slow in spots, but I am going to continue with it because like I said, I really did enjoy it, and yeah, and I own them, so why not? Okay, the next one is Herbology. The first 2 I read in the other, or for the other video. So it's Amber House, and I gave that a 4, and American Vampire, I gave that one a 5. I'm currently reading the 2nd volume of American Vampire. Oh, so good. I'm really loving graphic novels, guys. And then the last in Herbology is to read a book with either one of these words in the title: light, air, sun, or water. I originally chose water. I started reading that, and it wasn't a bad book. I just was not in the mood to read that kind of a book. And so I chose East of the Sun, West of the Moon. And hold on, I'm going to have to look at this to tell you how to pronounce this. It's a Norwegian fairy tale book. It's a book full of Norwegian fairy tales, and they were collected by Peter Kristen Abjornsen. I know I said that horribly wrong. And Jorgen Moe. And I listened to this on Scribd, and it's got a lot of pretty covers. Like, this is one of the covers. It's got a lot of different covers, but basically it was just different fairy tales. I liked most of them. I gave it a 4 because it was very, very repetitive. Very repetitive. I mean, it was just like the same story kind of told in different ways. Several of them were like that. And it was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I did enjoy the stories, and if they wouldn't have been all in the same collection, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But I'm very glad I read them. And I probably will actually try to find a nice collection of it. And sorry guys, I had to move my leg. My leg was cramping. But I will probably buy one and to keep, and then that way I can just read them here and there, like, fairy tales, instead of reading them all at once the way I did, which is probably not such a great idea. So, but I would recommend that you check them out, but maybe not reading the whole entire book at once. Okay, History of Magic I wasn't able to do. The next one is Muggle Studies. And the first one in that is to read a book written by one of your favorite authors. I was going to read a Stephen King book, and I just decided I didn't want to. Sorry guys, I'm trying not to show you my foot. So I decided that I was going to read a Neil Gaiman book because I've really enjoyed his book so far. And so I picked Stardust because several people have recommended this to me. I gave it a 4. It was actually a really good book. It was a little, I don't know, childish is not really the right, maybe naive, some of the book, and maybe that's just because the character was supposed to be that way, but I don't know. But it was really good. It was a really sweet kind of a tale, and it was, the beginning I'm not going to tell you about, but the main part of it is about a boy's journey. He falls in love with this girl, and he's trying to convince her to marry him, and they see a star, and he says, well, will you marry me, if I catch this star, if I bring the star home to you? And she says yes. And so this is his journey of trying to catch this star and bring it to her, but he's not the only one that's looking for this star. So it's really good, and I did like it. I really did enjoy it, and I'm really still liking Neil Gaiman's stories, and I can't wait to read another one of his. And I would recommend this. Just go into it with, think fairy tale, more like, kind of, you know, like that naive kind of a feel kind of into it. And I wasn't really prepared for that, and maybe if I was, I would have enjoyed it even more than I did. But like I said, I still gave it a 4, and I still really enjoyed it. Okay, the next one is, this was read a biography. Now, I don't like biographies normally. I shouldn't say that. It's not that I don't like them. I just don't read them because a lot of people are just annoying to me. And so I decided to read a book called Lady Almina and the Real Downton Abbey. And this was by Countess Carnarvon. I think is how she puts it. Yes, the Countess Carnarvon. She's actually telling the story, I guess it would be grandmother, or great-great-grandparents, or whatever. Anyway, she's, you know, and so basically, okay, this is the book. I read it online, and this was the cover that I read, okay? But I wanted to show you, and these pictures are in the book. This is her. This is Almina. Isn't she gorgeous? But it tells her story. She gets married to is he the 5th? Yes, he's, gets married to the 5th Earl. And she's actually the illegitimate child of Alfred de Rothschild. Okay, and so that, it's just, I don't know, but it tells their story. And she, I mean, it just, it goes into so much. And she ends up being a nurse, or she opens a hospital there at the castle. I wonder if they have a I don't think they have a thing of the castle. The castle that if you've seen Downton Abbey, the actual castle in Downton Abbey is actually the castle, the real castle, the real, you know, castle that they lived in. Highclere is what it's called. And actually, I forgot that her husband was the one that actually found King Tut's tomb. I mean, it goes into all of this, and it goes, I mean, it just, this book was amazing. It was so interesting that all the things that they went through, all the things that they went through, and just, I mean, it was just amazing that all this happened to one family. And how she wrote this book was and she didn't write it like a novel. She kind of pieces things together from letters, and when people would sign, when they would come to the castle, they would sign in on this guest book, and certain things were written in the guest book, like if it was war, that, you know, war comes and things like that. And I mean, just the royalty that would come to this castle, and I don't know, it was just, this book is amazing. If you like Downton Abbey, I would suggest that you read this book, because you'll get a whole new perspective about the castle. And like I said, I think I told you I gave it a 5. Okay. The next one, almost done, guys. Not too many more. The next one that I read was for read a retelling, and I chose The Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. Let's tip this up a little bit. The Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. And this book, this is a retelling of The Little Mermaid. And this book was amazing. I have not really read, I usually read Beauty and the Beast retellings because that's my favorite story. But I wanted to read this because it sounded interesting, because it tells how the Sea Witch became the Sea Witch. And I kept thinking, I wasn't sure which one of the girls was going to be the witch. And I kind of went back and forth because I thought it was going to be one. And then it just, it was so good. And just the twists kind of in this, I really enjoyed it. And basically it's about actually three best friends. It's about Anna, Evie, and what's the boy's name? Anna, Evie, and oh fudge, what's the prince's name? Fudge, I can't remember the prince's name. Anna, Eva, well, Annie, wait a minute, let me start this one more time. Anna, Evie, and Nicholas, something like that. And so they have been friends their whole lives, pretty much. And one day, a horrible thing happens. And so we kind of go back and forth from the present to the past. And we see what happens in the past and why only two of the friends are left now. And there's magic in this. There's not supposed to be magic anymore because this town does not like magic. So the magic is secretive and things happen and secrets are told. And oh, it's such a good book. I really, really liked it. So I definitely would recommend this one. So definitely a 5. Okay. Then we're on to potions. The first 2 of those I read and told you guys about on the other one. And those were Red Queen. I gave it a 5. Awesome book. And The Graveyard Book, Volume 2, which was by Neil Gaiman, which is the graphic novel, the second volume of the graphic novel of The Graveyard Book. I gave that a 4. Potions for the last one is book over 350 pages. And I read, and I darken, by Kirsten White. And I'm also going to continue with this month. And oh my goodness, look at this cover. And oh my goodness, I like this story. Now this story has got a lot of intrigue and a lot of political stuff. And not a lot of action so much. But you're definitely getting the basis of why I think she's going to do what she's going to do in the next couple books. Or however many books there are. So I would recommend this though. But and that's a very diverse book. There are gay characters. I kind of figured it out who. And it kind of makes you a little sad for him because he doesn't. Oh, it's just sad. And any of you guys that have read this book, you know what I mean. But it makes me sad because he has so much love and it just makes me sad. But anyway, so I definitely would recommend this. And this is basically a retelling of Vlad the Impaler, Count Dracula. But it's told as that the Count or the Vlad the Impaler was a girl, and her name is oh my goodness, her name is Lotta, and her brother's name is Radu. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. So yeah, I've read a lot of good books this time. And then okay, I've only got 3 books. And the first one I told in and this is for Transfiguration. It was Lighter Than My Shadow. That was a huge graphic novel, and that was I gave a 5. The next one is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I have never read anything like this book. This book, even now, I got done with it and I closed the book and I just sat and it was like, wow. And what this book is about, hold on, I'm going to have to look up the name because I'm going to have to look it up to read the Wilhelm Gustloff. It was a ship, and this was a real ship. It ferried people from one side of the Baltic to the other. They were evacuating people as Russia came across Poland, and people were fleeing from the Russians, and so the Germans were trying to get people to the other side to a safer place, and so they were evacuating, and the Wilhelm, Gustav was actually sunk. There were, real life guys, there were 10,000 people on board. 9,000 of them died. Only 1,000 survived. And I had never, and World War II is one that I actually will read books and things about, and, and that's the part of history that I always really, got into, and and I never heard of this. But anyway, so she did a lot of research. It tells you all in the back, the research books. She did a lot of interviews, all kinds of things, and she wrote this book. Now, it's obviously not based on any one story. Oh, I'm gonna move my leg again. On one story. But what it is I also like it because what it does is it doesn't have chapters. Instead, it's told from four different perspectives. You have Florian, you have Emilia, you have Joanna, and you have Alfred. And they're each different. They're each trying to get to the boat for different reasons, and I'm not going to tell you any of that. You're just going to have to read it and find out for yourself. But I would definitely recommend it, especially if you like World War II books, or books based on research done from a real event, things like that. But I would definitely recommend this. I gave it a 5. Okay, and the last book is read a book that's set in a kingdom or has royals, and I picked The Queen. You know what? Did I skip? Did I skip something? Seems to me. No, I guess not. Anyway, so I picked The Queen by Kira Cass. This is another This is a novella from the selection, and this tells, okay, if you've read the selection, the first 3 books, it is about the queen, the mother, of the princess trying to find a wife. It tells her story. And I gave this a 4, and the only reason I gave this a 4 was because I think it was too short. It was like speeding through what she went through. And I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, maybe backstory or something a little more about her. But it was interesting to read about her and to find out a little bit more information, because I really liked her in the first 3 selection books, and I was sad about what ends up happening at the, with her. So, yeah. But anyway, so those are the 39, yeah, I wish. The 29 books I read. I was hoping to read 33, but I didn't get that many read. But I think 29 is pretty close, so I'm pretty happy. I'm so sorry for those of you that have actually gone through this almost hour-long video. I really appreciate it. I will hopefully be on tomorrow or the next day with my September TBR, because I'm getting some books from the library in the next couple days that I want to show you what I'm going to read. And let me know if you guys have read any of these books, want to read any of these books. If you want to talk about any of these books, let me know. And I will see you next time. Bye.